There is a great, quiet organ seated on the right side of your belly, tucked up under your ribs, and it has been keeping you alive every hour of every day since before you drew your first breath. You, I would wager, have given it less thought in your whole life than you have given a rash on your arm last Tuesday. It weighs about as much as a small melon. It is shaped something like a wedge, and it does not rest. From the first cry to the last, it works. And of all the parts of you, I would put this one right at the top as the one the modern way of eating is hardest on, and right at the top as the one the old plain way of eating was always kindest to. It is the liver. And I would like to sit down with you a few minutes and talk about what wears it down, what spares it, and what the careful old people did, without ever knowing the first thing about its name. Let me be plain at the start, the way I always am, because this is still a young channel and I would rather earn your trust than dazzle you. I am not a doctor. The liver can come down with real, dangerous, life-shortening trouble, and that trouble is a matter for your physician, not for me, and I will not pretend otherwise or sell you a fix for it. I am not going to tell you any food cures a disease. What I will give you is the plain old wisdom about eating in a way that is easy on this hard-working organ, the way the careful old folks did it without ever having to think about it, because the way they ate just happened to be the kind way. A quick word before I go on. The old ways my family keeps, there is a great deal more of it than fits in any one video, and I have gathered the whole of it into a small, plain-spoken book at kaleblap.com if you want the long version. I will not mention it again. Now, let me reframe the whole thing, because once you see the one job the modern way hammers on, the rest of it follows plain and simple. The liver does several hundred separate jobs, so I will not try to name them all. But of every one of them, there is one the way our great-grandparents did not eat hammered on, day after day and year after year, and it is the filtering job, the gatekeeping job. Here is the plain picture, kept honest and simple. Everything you eat and drink does not stay out in the gut. It is taken up into the blood, and that blood, loaded with whatever you have just put in your mouth, drains straight from the gut into one great vein, and that vein goes, before it goes anywhere else in the whole body, directly into the liver. That is by design. The liver is the gate. Whatever came in from the field, from the barn, from the kitchen, from the package, from the bottle, has to pass through the liver before it reaches any other part of you. And the liver's work is to sort it, to break it down, to make it safe, to put the good part where the body can use it, and to handle, or to put away, the part that is not good. That is its daily work, and it is glad to do it, the way it was always meant to. Here is the trouble. There is all the difference in the world between nourishment that arrives at that gate slow and gentle, and nourishment that arrives in a great flood. When you eat real food, food that grew, food with its fiber still in it, a bowl of beans, a piece of whole bread, greens pulled from the garden that morning, an apple eaten whole, the nourishment comes out of the gut, into the blood slow, a little at a time, hour after hour. And the liver has time to sort it as it comes. It does its steady work and rests. That is the work it was built for. But the modern way does the opposite. The sweet drink, the soda, the sweet tea, the white sugar, the candy bar, the bright package of snacks made to be eaten fast, all of these come out of the gut, into that great vein fast, very fast. Faster than most folks realize. And the liver, seeing a great flood arrive at the gate all at once, has to drop whatever else it was doing and work hard, very hard, to sort it. Then, an hour or two later, you eat again, and it floods again, and again. 6, 8, 10 floods in a day, day after day, year after year, for 40 years. The organ was built to handle a slow, steady trickle of plain nourishment the way plain food delivers it. The modern way has it handling a great, fast flood many times a day, far past what it was built for. Anything worked that hard, that often, that far past its design, wears down in time. That is the plain truth of it. And here is something most folks do not know. There is one particular kind of sugar the liver handles in a particular way, and that is fructose. Fructose is the sweet part of fruit, of honey, of table sugar, of the syrup that goes into nearly every sweet thing in a package, and of course of the sweet drinks themselves. And here is what is plain and worth knowing. Fructose can only be processed in the liver. The rest of the body cannot use it until the liver has first worked on it. And when a great deal of fructose arrives at the gate at once, the liver does something near to no other organ in the body can do. It turns the excess into fat, tiny droplets of fat stored right inside the liver cells themselves. A little of that, now and then, the liver can clean up between floods. A great deal of that, many times a day, year after year, and the fat starts to stay. The liver becomes, in plain language, fatty, inflamed, slow, and that is the very trouble a great slice of the modern world is walking around with right now and does not even know it. The doctors have a name for it, fatty liver, but the old folks never had a name for it because they never had it, because they never ate in a way to bring it on. So you see the reframe. It is not that certain foods are poison to the liver, it is that certain modern foods make the liver work too hard, too fast, too often, with too much fructose for too many years, and the old plain way of eating never did that to it. Now let me name them plainly, the foods that hammer the liver, so you know them and can have a mind about them. The hardest of all is the sweet drink, the soda, the sweetened tea, the bottled juice, the energy drink, the sports drink. And here is the one that fools folks most of all, the fruit juice at the breakfast table. Even the kind that calls itself natural, even the kind with the pulp left in. Because once you press the juice out and leave the fiber behind, a glass of juice hits the liver near as hard as a soda does, and sometimes harder, because the fructose in fruit juice is already concentrated by the press. A sweet drink is the very worst thing you can hand this organ because it is pure sugar, with all the fiber gone, going down fast, nothing to slow it, the hardest and fastest flood you can deliver to that gate. If you changed one single thing in your life today, just one, it would be to set down the sweet drink and drink plain water instead. Then there is the white, stripped food, white flour, white bread that is more cake than bread. Pastries and donuts, biscuits and rolls made of fine white flour with the grain fiber milled clean out. Stripped of its fiber, white flour breaks down in the gut faster than most folks realize, near as fast as sugar itself, and it arrives at the liver as a flood. And the packaged snack food, the chips and the crackers and the rest, made to be eaten fast and never fill you, sending you back for another handful an hour later, another flood, and then another. And one more thing worth naming, though nobody likes to hear it, and that is the modern industrial cooking oil. The cheap seed oil pressed out of corn and soy and canola, poured into near every packaged thing and used in near every fryer. The old folks cooked with butter from their own cows and with the lard from their own hogs, fats the body knew and could use plain. The modern oils hit the liver in a different, slower way, but they hit it all the same, and a body eating them 3 meals a day for 40 years carries a quiet load the liver never quite shrugs off. And plainly, the hardest one of all, which I want to name carefully because it is real: heavy drinking. This is not a moral point, and I am not moralizing at you. It is a plain medical fact, and it is worth knowing. The liver is the only organ in the body that can process alcohol in any real quantity, and when it does, it makes a poison out of it on the way. The alcohol turns to a thing called acetaldehyde, and that thing, if it sits in the liver cells in any real amount for any real time, burns them. Not figuratively. It burns them. It inflames them. It scars them, and the heavy, regular drinking of years is among the leading causes of serious, irreversible liver trouble, the dangerous kind. A drop now and then is not what I am talking about. I am talking about the regular, heavy, years-long drinking that hurts the liver in a way no food can match. Laying it down genuinely lowers your risk of real disease. That is honest, that is well established, and that is worth hearing. And smoking. Smoking is its own plain harm to this organ. The smoke brings a long list of toxins into the blood goes through the liver has to handle every one of them, and the regular handling of those poisons, year after year, is a known cause of the worst liver trouble there is. These two, heavy drinking and smoking, are not about wearing the organ down slow with sugar. These two do direct harm. They are worth naming plainly because they are among the few things a person can lay down that genuinely lowers their risk of real disease. That is honest. Now, the part that ought to bring you some ease. Sparing this great organ is no special program and no special product. It is just the old plain way of eating, the way folks ate before any of this modern food existed. And it costs you nothing but the change. The whole of it comes down to one rule. Eat food that comes the way it grew, with its fiber still in it, so the nourishment arrives at the liver slow. That is the entire secret, and everything else is just that rule spelled out. It means eating real whole food, the vegetables, the greens, the beans and the lentils, the whole grain with the bran still on it, the fruit eaten whole with all its fiber, not pressed into a glass. All of these bring their nourishment to the liver, slow and gentle, in small amounts, hour after hour, wrapped in fiber, so the gate is never overwhelmed. This is the plain garden and table eating the old folks did every day of their lives. A bowl of beans set on the table at supper, a piece of whole bread from the bake oven, the greens from the garden pulled that morning, an apple from the tree behind the house, eaten whole with the skin still on. None of it ever flooded the liver. All of it was the easy, steady work the organ was built for. It means a second plain trick the old folks did without ever thinking, which is to never eat a sweet thing all by itself on an empty stomach. The old way was to eat balanced, the way a farm meal naturally is. Some protein, some fat, some fiber all together on the plate at once. And when you eat that way, even if the meal has a little sugar in it, that sugar comes out of the gut slower because the fat, the protein, and the fiber all slow it down together. A handful of nuts alongside the fruit, the butter and the egg with the bread. The old farm table balanced itself naturally, and that balance is exactly what keeps any flood from ever arriving at the gate. It means another plain habit the old folks kept without ever making a rule of it, and that is a rhythm of meals. 3 meals a day and not much between. The body was built, this great organ included, to do its work and rest. Every time a little something goes in, the liver has to wake up and do a little something about it. Snack, snack, snack all day long, and the liver never gets to rest at all. The old way, breakfast, dinner, supper, and the kitchen closed between, gave the liver long, quiet stretches to finish its work, lay down its stores, and be ready for the next steady meal. The way of grazing all day keeps the gate in a constant low-grade flood that never lets the work be done clean. That is a plain, easy change to make, and it spares the organ more than most folks realize. It means drinking water instead of the sweet drink. Plain water, the way I talked about in another video. This one change alone spares the liver more than near anything else you could do. A glass of water passes gently through the gate and asks nothing of the organ. A can of soda arrives as a flood and demands everything of it. That is the whole plain difference, and it is a change anyone can make today. It means moving your body, especially after you eat. Here is a plain old thing the old folks did without a thought because the life they lived required it. A walk after a meal. The farmer got up from the table and went back to the barn. The mother got up from the table and went back to the wash. The grandfather got up and went to sit on the porch, but never for an hour, never still. And it happens that moving your body, even just a gentle walk up the lane and back, helps the blood flow through the liver evenly and takes a real load off the organ. The old folks were never sitting still for an hour after the meal. The life kept them moving, and the moving spared them. You can do the same on purpose. A walk after supper, even a short one, is one of the kindest and simplest things you can do for this organ, and it has been the old way for as long as there has been an old way. and it means one more quiet thing, seldom spoken of, which is plain and early rest. The liver does a great deal of its deepest work after the day is done, while you are sleeping. In the deep of the night, when no new nourishment is coming in at the gate, it goes about cleaning, mending, putting the day's load in order. A body that gets to bed at a plain hour and sleeps a full night gives this organ the long, quiet stretch it needs. A body that sits up late and eats late into the evening never gives it that stretch. The old folks were in bed by 9 and up by 5, and that rhythm, plain as it sounds, gave this organ half the night to be still. There is a kind of mercy in a regular early bedtime that is seldom spoken of. And there is one more piece of old wisdom here, and I want to give it to you honestly with its plain scope. The old folks set great store by the bitter greens at the table, and we have talked about these before, the dandelion and its bitter cousins. There is honest sense in it. The bitter taste on the tongue wakes up the whole upper digestion, gets the bile flowing out of the liver, and gets the body ready to do its work of breaking down a meal. A little bitter green with a meal is an old and sensible way to help your digestion along, and the liver is part of that digestion. The bitter greens carry compounds that signal the liver to release its stored bile, and the bile in turn helps the gut break the fats of the meal down before they ever reach the gate. That is the plain, modest truth of it. I will be straight about the edge of this. I am not telling you a bitter herb fixes a sick liver or cures any disease of it. It does not. Anyone who tells you a weed cures liver disease is not being honest with you. What I am telling you is the plain and modest truth that bitter greens help wake up a healthy digestion, and that is a small, honest good, no more and no less. I will tell you one small thing from my own house. My grandfather, who lived to 91 and worked the land every day of his life until the last month of it, used to walk out to the ditch bank in the early spring and cut the first young dandelions with a pocket knife. He brought them in to my grandmother, who washed them and set them on the table beside the eggs and the bread. He said, in his plain way, that the body needs the bitter after the long winter, the way the land needs the first green after the snow. He could not have told you a single thing about bile, or liver cells, or fatty liver, or fructose. He just knew it worked, the way his father knew it worked, the way his father before him knew it worked, because they had eaten that way their whole lives long and they had stayed well. There is a kind of wisdom in a house that keeps that kind of knowing, and it is a kind we have lost, sadly, in a single generation. Now let me draw the whole of it together. This great organ seated under your right ribs does several hundred jobs without rest, and the modern way of eating wears down its filtering job year by handing it a hard, fast flood of sugar many times a day, far past what it was built for. The fast sugars do it. The sweet drinks worst of all, the juices and the stripped white foods and the packaged snacks. And the heavy drinking does a harder, more direct harm, worth naming plainly. The old plain way spares it, not by any particular trick, but simply by eating real whole food with its fiber in it so the nourishment comes slow. By eating balanced so nothing floods. By keeping a rhythm of plain meals so the gate gets its rest. By drinking water in place of sweet drinks. By moving the body after a meal. By leaning on the old bitter greens to wake the digestion along. And by laying down come nightfall for a plain and early rest. None of that is medicine. All of it is the plain old way folks ate before any of this, and it happens to be exactly what this hard-working organ needs to be spared a lifetime of strain. Here is the part nobody makes a dollar telling you. There is no money in telling a man to eat beans and whole bread and the greens from his garden, to drink water and to take a walk after supper. Nobody gets rich off that. The money is all on the other side. The money is in the sweet drink and the bright package and the stripped white food that sends you back to the store again next week, still hungry. A whole great industry is built on food made to be eaten fast, to never fill you, to hand your body that hard flood again and again so you buy it again and again. And then, further down the road, another industry waits to sell you the fix for the trouble the first one helped cause. I am not telling you there is a conspiracy. I am telling you something plainer and harder to fix than a conspiracy. The plain, whole food has no salesman and makes no one rich, so it goes quiet, while the fast food and the sweet drink shout from every screen and from every sign. The old plain way did not get proven wrong. It just had nothing to sell, so it got drowned out. And 3 generations later, folks are wearing out their bodies on food their great-grandparents would not have recognized as food at all. Tell me in the comments below, what did your people eat plainly day to day when you were young or when your grandparents were? Was it whole food off the land? Or had the sweet drinks and the packages already come in? Did your family have a way at the table, a bitter green, a balance, a walk after the meal, a habit that kept them well? Where did your folks come from and what did they eat? Near every old family ate plainer than we do now, and the memory of how it was done is worth keeping. So write yours down here. I read every single one. Next video. Since today we talked about keeping the arrival at the gate slow and steady, the next one I want to do is on the old whole grains and the beans and the long-simmered pots the old folks lived on. The plain, filling food that kept a working family fed and steady from one meal to the next without a single thing out of a package. Same honest rule. What is true, what is just a nice story, and how we actually ate it. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, the next time you reach for the sweet drink or for the bright package, think for a moment of that large, faithful organ under your right ribs that has worked for you every day of your life without thanks. Hand it real food the way it grew, and it will do its small, easy work and rest the way it was built to. The old people never knew its name. They just ate in a way that was kind to it their whole lives long, because they ate real food off their own land. And that is a kind of wisdom that does not wear out in any house that still remembers.